state.
Power of love, there's no greater power as far as I'm concerned. And when people realize their own capacity for love and to be able to give and receive love, and how it can never be diminished by things that happen to us in our lives and our upbringing and our personalities and influences, as outside influences. Nothing can touch that capacity for love. And to realize that, there's nothing like it. I've seen people in hopeless situations who have realized that power, and their lives change almost instantly because they get hope.
It's so still.
That's what people need, is hope.
Oh, look at that sky up there. Yeah, that part, that spot.
When people take their marriage vows, the vows really exemplify what we're talking about. The marriage vows, they essentially say that there's nothing that should get in the way of your love. And love is another way of saying the feeling between two people. And essentially the marriage vows say sickness and in health and richer for poorer and better for worse. They're essentially saying that there's no thing, there's no issue, there's no thing that should be more important, that should take you out of a feeling of love. But yet, you get into the relationship and him hassling you, her nagging you, or the fact that you differ on whether to have kids or not, or the fact that they don't clean up after themselves. Every moment you spend having that issue on your mind keeps you in bad feeling. And what's more, your bad feeling keeps you out of addressing that issue gracefully. So the moment you get out of your bad feeling, the issue gets put in its place, and you either address it at that point more neutrally, or it doesn't even look like an issue anymore. That's what we're saying, is not that you get in good feeling and then you don't ever have to address any issues and you won't have any problems, and here, run through this field of daisies with me, it's great. What we're saying is that you're feeling, when you're in a bad feeling, every single thing looks like a problem. And when your feeling improves, when you get into a feeling of love with the person that you're with, or you get into a feeling of goodwill with somebody you work with, you have the clarity to handle the problem, and the tact, and the grace, and the poise, and the conscientiousness that you need to address anything with people.
The feeling or the state of mind we're talking about is like natural as kind of still water. You know, that left alone, contained bodies of water are still, just like our minds are. Left alone, our minds are still, and in a still mind we have all this wisdom and good feeling. Well, something that takes you out of that good feeling, we're saying that thought takes us out of that good feeling. In my mind, in terms of the analogy, it'd be like throwing a rock in the pool. So it splashes and then there's ripples. So that calm water is gone for a moment. But then you have the power to let it calm down again, or to throw something else in.
The rocks that he's talking about are your thoughts about life that's happening right now. Yeah. So he's late. Well, he should have called if he was going to be late.
Splash.
He never calls.
Splash.
It's totally disrespectful, because he seems to think his time's more important than my time.
Splash, splash, splash,
And
splash.
this is the kind of thinking that we do when things are on our mind, because that's what we're talking about as thought. Yeah. It's not that nothing's happening in life, it's all happening in your head, but your reactions to life, your thinking about what's happening to life, and how personal it looks to you, and how victimized you feel, and how wrong they are, and the bad feeling that you bring to something through your thinking. That's what we're talking about.
When I learned that the power for a beautiful feeling in life, a power for appreciation and love and contentment, when I learned that that was within me, that enabled me to take guardianship of my own well-being. Being able to do that comes from an understanding that there are principles which create our experience of life, which are our life.
In this understanding, there's 3 principles that we talk about, and they're very simple. First principle is thought. Thought is the incredible power in life that's generating mental activity in our head moment to moment. There's something that's doing that for each and every one of us from the moment we're born until we die.
Consciousness is, I've heard it described as the breath of life. It's what makes our thinking alive to us. It's what makes us aware of our thinking.
Without the principle of consciousness, we wouldn't be conscious human beings. We wouldn't be able to be aware of life. We wouldn't be able to be aware of the creative power of thought to create our experience. It's what allows us to see, to feel, to hear, to breathe, to think. That's the principle of consciousness. And that's true fundamental to all people. It's just across the board. The third principle is the principle of mind, which is the intelligence of life. It's the source and power behind all of life. It's the ultimate, it's what is running the show. It's what's keeping us alive. It's what's generating the capacity for thought and consciousness. And it's that intelligence and that wisdom that we can use wisely or unwisely. So these 3 principles, thought, consciousness, and mind, are continually working together moment to moment to create our experience from the inside out. And that's one of the beautiful things that this offers, is an understanding for people for how it is that their experience is being created from inside out, rather than we're just victims of life and circumstance. We found there's nothing more helpful than teaching people about the principles behind how their minds work. And so as clients begin to realize this, it loosens things up for people so that they don't get too rigid about how things have been and how they've been seeing things.
So what you have to see is the relationship between thought and feeling. Like if you're thinking in a certain direction, like you're thinking about what's wrong with Brad, you know, and how come he's not listening and he's not doing this. I mean, you can see the relationship between thought about Brad, negative thought about Brad, and a negative feeling, right? But if you start thinking about something like how cute Brad is, or what you like about him, what's good about him, right? Then you can start building a nice feeling. See, the feelings come from inside you according to how you think. Now, the idea is not to manage your thinking. Like, okay, now I'm going to think positive. I'm not thinking negative. The idea is to understand this as deeply as you can. Understand the relationship between thought and feeling. Because the deeper you understand this, it'll be so easy to do. You will just shift, and you'll stop looking outside. You'll start looking inside for your own positive feeling. Once you start taking responsibility for that, once anyone starts taking responsibility for their own feelings, then they've got it licked. Then they feel free.
My partner got home, it was Friday night, and he was clearly like just zoned right out from the week, and he clearly, was just agitated and started spouting off about things, and I didn't even know what the heck he was talking about. I don't even think he did. He was just not in a good mood. And it was 8 o'clock at night, and he said, "That's it, this night is over, I am going to bed." And I was like, thank the Lord, Hallelujah. But he went to bed. I was determined I was going to get to the bottom of this one, right? Like, he wasn't going to get away with that. And then that next day, he just wasn't feeling well, and I thought, well, we can't talk about it when he's sick. And then the next day, I just thought, what? We just don't have to talk about this, because he was not his mood came back. Like, I don't know how to explain it any other way. And I thought, why would I want to go back to Friday night when now it's like Sunday? Like, shouldn't we just have a nice Sunday? He was just clearly in a bad mood. He just needed to go to bed and have sleep and be sick the next day and then get over it.
And it happens, you know, you're sitting around being mad at somebody for not calling you because they're late, and you're all annoyed and kind of bent out of shape and spent 20 minutes thinking about how disrespectful they are, and you're going to reevaluate the relationship and all kinds of things. And they call up and they said, well, I've been in a car accident. What happens? You shift. Are you all right? You know, then do you have to like hold back all the thinking about, well, how disrespectful can you be to not call sooner? You know, and, I mean, you don't. You know, and that's an example that happens automatically in us, and people go, well, what are you supposed to do? But the idea is the ability to rise above the thinking that comes to mind first. It's just our habitual thinking playing, you know, running its course, doing the same thing it always is doing.
When I started to realize that when my wife drops down into a lower mood, it's not a personal thing. It's not about me. And when she learned the same thing, that when I'm in a low mood, it's not a statement about our relationship. It's a statement about our state of mind. It freed up our relationship so that we didn't feel like we had to blame or justify where we were or what we were experiencing and why we were feeling the way we were. And before we learned this, we'd drop down into a lower mood and we'd go running up to each other and go, what's the matter? And we'd talk about it ad nauseum for hours and hours, and we'd both get down to very low moods. And it would just get slow and painful and difficult, and we thought that's what had to happen to have a good relationship. I mean, how often have people heard, you have to work hard on your relationship to have a good relationship? And here we are learning the opposite, is that when you understand the nature of your own experience and how it's being created by thought, you stop working so hard on your relationship, which basically means you stop working to fix a relationship just because you're having a low mood. It takes the strain out of the relationship. It takes the fight out of the relationship. I can walk in the house, and no matter what state of mind I'm in or she's in, we can just accept that and see it for what it is, and not say it is about the relationship, and not make it mean something really big and horrible, and just enjoy one another, which is really what I think relationships are about.
It works because when people have a high level of well-being, they have tendencies and traits that are very relationship enhancing. They're compassionate, they have a lot of perspective, they have a lot of wisdom, they have a sense of humor, they tend to forgive, they're able to ignore temporary problems. So if you get people in that place, relationships are as easy as falling off a log. Now conversely, if people are insecure and troubled, all the things I mentioned earlier are difficult. They have trouble forgiving, they have trouble forgetting, they have trouble being compassionate. So there's no real magic in it, in the sense that the quality of the relationship is going to be like the sum total of the well-being of each person in it. We all have this beauty, this goodness in us as human beings, and it's seeing that goodness, respecting that goodness, is what brings it out, and that is the key to relationships. And people's ability to see it is improved by their level of understanding. So one of the things that this approach does is it makes you better at seeing the goodness in yourself and others, and that changes the dynamic completely between couples.
It's so simple. I mean, if a couple really truly learned how to just enjoy one another, all of their problems would begin to just fall away. And yet, if we just focus on the problems and keep working on them and working on them, we can get bogged down, we can get caught up in the details, or we can get more and more caught up in that. If you move in the direction of your well-being and learn how to just enjoy one another again, It's based on this underlying faith that if you keep moving in that direction, you're more likely to get insight, more likely to get solutions to problems, so that all of a sudden you're getting solutions to problems without having to work so hard to find them. And that's neat. Both my wife and I now have this faith that if we leave a problem alone and we talk about it when we're really in a good state of mind, and then if we don't come up with solutions, it's no big deal. Why let that get in the way of enjoying one another? We just go on enjoying ourselves. One or the other of us is going to come up with ideas that lead towards solution. But we don't have to put our relationship on hold. That's the neat thing. We don't have to wait until we solve the problem before we can enjoy ourselves. We can enjoy ourselves while we're waiting for the solution.
The quality of your thinking is, in my experience, changing all the time. And when it goes down, you don't really want to be doing anything about it, because you're just kind of holding it in place or making something out of it. You're putting your energy into it. You know, it's like watering it and then wondering why the garden's full of weeds. But if without your attention, it's a temporary phenomenon, comes and goes. So with that understanding, people can learn just to ride out life's ups and downs and to not put energy into feelings or experiences or states of mind that they're not interested in living in.
I feel like now I have a way to see the right way to go. You know, a true sense of right and wrong, a true moral sense, a true way to find my happiness, a true way to find my bearings, a way to raise confident, secure children, a way to have a beautiful marriage. I see which way to turn when things come up. Just real basic, a basic goodness that I didn't feel I had before. And that feeling healed us. I don't know how else to say it.
There's several times that things have come to mind that I've learned in counseling. But I think the one that helped me the most was when I realized how unimportant my thoughts were, and that I was putting too much energy into their reality. And once I realized that, you know, these things that were going through my mind were unimportant and just let them go, I could look at life differently. I could look at myself differently. I could look at my husband differently and my children. Yeah, realizing how unimportant my thoughts were.
I remember waking up thinking that this thing called thought that I rely on, you know, it's a tool that we're given, and it's invisible to us. We don't ever have to think about using it, or it just happens. What if it's wrong? What if it can't be trusted? And if I could be wrong about how I've been thinking about this conflict with Doug and how to run the business, I could be wrong about a lot of things. To me, it's so miraculous that I can have a thought that the person that I love most is out to harm me in some way, whether it be, you know, because he wants to make a decision in the business that I don't agree with, or that he didn't get home in time for dinner to be hot set on the table. The same situation that I thought was going to take me down if I didn't get in there and fight with Doug about it, now is nothing, has no importance, is not a challenge at all. And the only thing that has changed has been within me. The only thing that changed was that I chose to see it differently. And how I was able to choose it differently was to be able to see that it was something that I had created anyway.
What it really is this cherished good feeling I have with her. And with Carolyn, I have it almost all the time. You know, we can find it, You know, if we get lost, if one of us gets lost, as long as the other one isn't lost, we're cool. If we're both lost at the same time, we've learned how to keep our mouths shut and just hold on until somebody announces where we are on the playing board here.
Something that's happened is when we're angry with each other, you know, trying to hold on to that angry feeling, it's so difficult to do that now. It's so hard to, you know, sometimes I'm so mad at him.
It's exhausting.
And I'm trying so hard to be mad. And he'll be, you know, saying cute things and, you know, just being himself. And I can't hold on to it because I just see his goodness and I know he wants me to come back. And over time, it's just, it's faster and faster that we can let go of that when we just look at each other, which is a total gift.
Yeah, there's times I know I'm in a bad mood, and Nina will ask me if I'm mad at her, and I want to be mad at her. Like I try and think of something that I can be mad at her about, but it always comes out absurd, and then we're laughing.
Yeah.
It's so gratifying to see a couple begin to see that their own well-being is not dependent upon what the other person is doing. It's not dependent upon their circumstance. It's not dependent upon what's happened to them in the past. It's available inside, it's present, it's now, and that's a message of hope. And to see people come alive with this message of hope and then find their own well-being and bring it to the other person and bring out the best in the other person, that's gratifying. That's the essence of this. That's what everybody is looking for.